Hello, I'm Jerry, and today I was gonna talk about the dark truth behind my doll collecting and like my doll collection in general. Honestly, like collecting in general, like I don't really just have dolls. Um, so what I mean by that is, how do I start this? So like, I would say back Well, I'll start off. I've always liked dolls. This is something I've mentioned before. So I've had dolls since I was like really young, maybe 5 or 6 years old. I've had dolls, and I started my collection. And when I was like, I would say more closer to the age of like 11, I was starting really like accumulating a bunch of dolls. But I've always had dolls. And so what I will say is, as I was growing up, I had a parent, a particular parent that wasn't always in favor of my. It wasn't really dolls at first. It was more like the clutter that came with the dolls. Because, I like stuff, toys, knickknacks, trinkets, anything I can really find or that I think is cool. So I will keep it. And as I accumulated more things, as I kind of got a little older, this parent would not always like that when it came to like having more of a clean look. So over the years, we would always kind of bicker about stuff like that, me being organized, clean, and whatnot. And then as I got a little older, like more in elementary school, middle school, so I was like, I guess between 10 to like 14 years old, I noticed I didn't really have a lot of friends, I've never really had a lot of friends, and, people didn't really talk to me like that. I was really shy, and I just came off, I guess, a little awkward. I don't know. But I kind of always struggled having friends. And so there came a point where I was like, I believe I was like 14 when this happened. So I'm kind of jumping ahead. But mind you, throughout the years, me and this parent would kind of just bicker, about what clean is. I would clean my room, but I would still have things out everywhere because I like to look at my stuff. Then, my parents like, oh no, you have to put the things in the drawer, put it away. This looks cluttered, blah, blah, blah. So, it was just kind of differences of views, I guess. And, I will say around the time that I had a tragedy happen, like, I'm telling the tragedy. It's honestly kind of traumatic for me, but something happened to where in the house to where it caused us to have to kind of like go into, I guess you could say, survival mode, panic mode, to whereas a lot of our stuff was tossed. I say our stuff, mostly my things. Some of my family's things got tossed too, but I'm kind of a little all over the place. I want to emphasize that around this time that this tragedy happened, I was getting into it with my parent, and I was, expressing my concerns at the time, being like, oh, I don't really have friends, and like I have a sibling that seemingly had a lot of friends, way better at socializing. I was just seeming like the black sheep at the time, and it always made me feel awkward throughout my whole life. Even now, sometimes I struggle with feeling just out of place, but it was a lot more emphasized when I was younger. And toys and dolls became a big deal for me, a big comfort. There was a lot of excitement. I had an Instagram with my dolls. I was all into YouTubers. Don't even get me started on YouTubers. I used to love this one YouTuber called Sweenholic. He did rad reviews, like R-A-D, rad. It was so cool. Unfortunately, he like left the internet. I don't even know when, like probably over 10 years ago. And he seems to have took all of his videos with him. So all of those really cool videos I used to watch, he did a lot of must-to-high stuff. They're no longer on the internet. I try and look them up here and there. They're never there. Even if you find his page, it says in the description, I don't have any more interest in toys, so I don't make videos anymore. And it's so tragic. Those videos, they were great. They were some of my favorite videos because he was so detailed with the reviews. He didn't have a lot of loud music going on in the background or anything. And it was just him talking about the doll, showing the doll, and all the cool things that all had to offer. And he did other stuff, you know, action figures and whatnot. I love the dolls the most, and I would get my dolls and open them on the camera with him. It was so cool, so fun. But I forgot why I mentioned that, but I used to love those videos. I was saying, I was really involved. You know, I had an Instagram. I watched plenty of YouTubers. I wanted to go to Comic-Con so bad. I still want to go to Comic-Con right now. I've never been to a San Diego Comic-Con or anything. I've found like local toy events where people will have Monster High sometimes, or mostly Barbie. But like going to an actual San Diego Comic-Con is such a dream. I would love to go to one. But I honestly figured at the time, like me prime Monster High when I was really getting in my collection, I never thought my parent would take me, to be honest, just because of, you know, we've already been bickering over the years about even me having dolls, you know, because the older I get, the more it's like, oh, don't you want to get into something else? Like, no, actually, I love dolls. I love dolls forever. But, you know, in my mind, I kind of convinced myself that my parent wouldn't have took me anyway, so I never really asked. I probably asked like once, but, you know, San Diego was nowhere near where I was living, and, you know, sometimes I would struggle to just be able to pick up a doll from the store. So I'm like, I'm not going to push it. No way I'm going to be able to get here unless they're sending me there, which wasn't happening. I didn't have no type of social media platform at the time or anything like that. Yeah, but I used to envy those people so bad. I used to be able to get like sent PR or go look at things early. Oh, that was so cool to me. It was so cool to me. But anyway, so the tragedy. Around this time, not only was it kind of me expressing feeling like awkward, like, oh, I don't really have anybody at school to talk to, all this stuff, but my parent at the time, well, still my parent, was encouraging me to be like, oh, well, it's because, you know, you're a little awkward, you're a little strange, like, if you, basically grow up in a way, you know, you're gonna attract more people, you'll have like a better energy and whatnot, and smile more. I've always been told that. I mean, not really now, but I guess back then, you know, like, oh, you look so mean. I'm like, looking mean? I'm just chilling out. Like, I don't know what you mean by mean, but I smile more now, I guess. I mean, I was never really unhappy. But that was kind of the ideas going around at the time, that if I was growing up and acting just more like my age, then I was going to be attracting friends. And the problem with this is, for one, growing up mostly just meant to throw my things away and just live more minimalist, I guess. Because by the time I was like 14, I had a plethora of things. I had like 70 or so dolls, like all together. I had a bunch of stuffed animals, plenty of clothes, shoes, knickknacks, all the things I've like gathered just over the years of my young life that I never tossed. You know, my room was full of stuff, you know. So at the time, that was just the main thing, was my things. And so, yeah. And also at the time, I was putting a lot of trust into this parent. Not that they're not trustworthy, just more like, you know, I was acknowledging the fact that we kind of been arguing in a way about this same topic for years. And that's just part of my personality, being stubborn, you know, wanting what I want. But it was more like, you know, I was thinking to myself, oh, wow, you know, this parent's always saying how right they are. And usually, you know, you trust your parents in these moments to really know more versus the younger kid. So I'm thinking to myself, what if this one time I don't fully like fight what's happening? And then before I get into that mindset, keep in mind the incident. There was something going on in the house that theoretically originated from my room, and my whole family put me at fault for it. It likely was my fault in a way. I was very naive at the time, so that's just kind of that, me not being educated enough on different things kind of led to me making this big mistake that led to, it affecting the entire house. With that being said, everyone in the house is mad at me. This all happened in like one day too, from people finding out about the incident, everyone being mad at me, to my things ending up in the garage. Like, this is a whole day event. And I was like 14 at the time. I'm young, 14. I was literally doing my homework when this happened. Yeah. So, yeah. Everyone's kind of already heated at me. There's a lot of tension in the house. There was a lot of tension. Everyone, like, there's so much tension in the house, and it was all being directed at me. Something I was actually used to. I was used to, at least in my mind, kind of ruining things. Like, that's kind of blunt, but it wasn't like this was the first time that something I did caused a whole chain of reactions, and like people's days or evenings or events got kind of salted, So I was used to that. It was more like, now. The main issue was that now this couldn't be fixed with like simple time. We physically had to do something to make this issue go away. And the solution at the time that my parent went for was to just throw everything out. So that's what basically ended up happening. That's the point I'm getting to. I'm just filling in the details to fully understand how everyone's thinking was going on at the moment, because it was like crazy. But so yeah, back to me and the parent. Me and the parent at the time, I was trying to trust them and be like, oh yeah, okay, I throw away my things, I grow up, I stopped watching Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, Nick Jr., whatever, and I'm gonna grow up and people are gonna just automatically be attracted to me and I'm gonna make friends. Newsflash, that never happened. It was a hoax. But at the time, I believe that's what would have happened. So after some of the tension sort of died down, all of my stuff in my room ended up in the garage. My parent wanted to throw everything out immediately, just like get rid of it. Once again, they're kind of in panic mode. What was happening in the house had never happened to us before. And when you look it up online, that's what they say, to just toss everything out. So that's what happened. And, my parent was, they don't have the same attachment to my things that I did. Only you are really going to care so much about your own stuff. So they were ready to just get rid of everything. Of course, I was ready to fight that right away. I was willing to compromise, but I wasn't willing to just throw my entire life away. So the solution at that moment was to basically be out in the garage and separate everything that was out there, which is basically my entire room. In exchange, I have to agree to get rid of some things. Just can't keep every single thing. And at the time, and even now, I felt like that was kind of salty, because I always low-key felt like my parent was using this incident as an excuse to really toss my things. Because theoretically, a lot of my favorite things that I would have loved to kept could have been saved. It's not like I had a messy room. It looked unorganized, but it was clean. Things were kept neat. I brushed all my dolls' hair. They were high up off the ground. Like, things I really cared about were well taken care of. So theoretically, I could have kept like 90% of my items back then if I just fought harder for myself, to be honest, because I was ready to fight to keep some of my stuff, but I didn't fight enough. To be honest, I should have just stayed stubborn. Being stubborn never failed me. But yeah, so of course I had no issues skipping dinner, whatever. I took my little Bluetooth radio out to the garage and I sat out there for about 3 hours dividing my things. And just let me say, I never tried so hard in my little young life. That was one of the few moments I ever used so much brain power. I was genuinely trying to compromise. I was genuinely trying to throw things away just to keep my favorite stuff. You know, I was like, okay, sure. I have a lot of things. Sure, it's a lot. So I really did try to toss the old things I didn't use, things I didn't want. And it was a little under half, but in my eyes, it was enough, you know, because it's not like people didn't know that I loved my dolls. I've always loved toys. I always will love toys, you know. It was no new concept. So I was thinking certainly there would have been some leniency on, obviously I'm going to keep all my toys. But sure, I can throw away some clothes and some old shoes or whatever. But it didn't work out that way. After all my hard work, I bought my parent out to show them, oh, look at what I did. And before even really looking through everything, the parent was immediately like, no, not gonna work. You can't keep all that stuff. Which was absolutely insane because I just did all that work and you didn't even bother to really look at what I just did. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. But I don't know exactly when this happened, but there was a point when I bought my parent out to the garage and they saw something from like years and years and years ago. So I don't know what it was called, but one of the many things in my stuff was a Build-A-Bear. A Build-A-Bear that I made when I was like 6 or 5. I was invited to a birthday party at Build-A-Bear and we all made our own bears. And that was the toy that was there. And my Build-A-Bear was wearing a dress. And it was like one of those mini dresses where they used to make like, you know, you get an outfit and your dog gets an outfit type of thing. I don't know what it was called, but I used to have one of those for my church dress. So, and it was like a church dress that I wore all the time. Instantly recognized, iconic style church dress. I actually have it. I have it right here. I'm going to show what it is because I have it right here. Alright, so this is a Madame Alexander doll. And I did specifically buy this doll because of this very dress. This is not the exact dress that I had mine, but it looked just like this. It was crazy. When I saw this online, I was like, oh my gosh, what is that dress? And I immediately asked the seller where she got it from. The seller didn't know. So I bought the doll so I could try and look for it. The doll wasn't too expensive, and I actually loved the doll a lot more than I thought. I actually had a Madame Alexander doll when I was growing up. I didn't even realize it. I thought it was an American Girl when I was younger, but it was a Madame Alexander doll now that I remember because I have a picture, but that's kind of a different story. Anyways, I did just end up buying the doll. The seller was great too. And I looked for myself, and unfortunately, I did not find a tag either. But this dress is still amazing to have. I don't even know where I would be able to find this again, but it looked just like this. The only difference was these flowers were pink, but it looked just like this. And it was just, even now I look at it and it's so cool when I can find these small pieces of like history, because there's just certain things I can't really replace from that time that I've lost. Either it's just not made, it's rare, or I don't even know what it was called. But yeah, this is the dress. I don't know if you get a good view of it. So anyways, that little doll dress was found amongst my things, and it was just really old. It's something that's, I don't even know when I got it type of thing. Like, it was just so old, and my parents saw it and we were both crying over it because it was just kind of a sentimental moment, I guess, reminding us of the past and whatnot and whatnot. But even sharing that sentimental moment was not enough. This parent still wanted most of my things gone, and so this was the unfortunate moment I kind of let my wall down. This was when I should have never backed down. I should have never backed down, but I did, because I was thinking in my mind, everything's going to get better. Wow, I'm going to make friends. Wow, I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. I'm finally not going to be so awkward anymore. Didn't happen. But oh well. And something else that is seared into my brain. This entire day is sealed into my brain. But something else. All of my dolls were in one giant black trash bag. And before I officially let go of trying to fight for my things, my parent was like, oh, do you want to keep 5 dolls? I don't even know where to start with that statement. At the time, I literally, word for word, they were like, do you want to keep 5 dolls? I said, I'm looking around. You know what? If I keep 5 dolls, I'm going to want to keep all of my dolls. That's literally what I said, because in my mind, I'm thinking, like, you have to be like, oh, I'm going to listen to my parent. They know all blah, blah, blah. I've always been fighting and it's never got me anywhere. Why would I keep doing it? I want some friends, whatever. I'll grow out of this. No. In the back of my head, I knew it to be true. I knew it to be true that there's nothing to grow out of. You don't need to be a certain age to collect dolls. But at the time, you know, there was no one there to tell me that. So, unfortunately, I didn't keep a single Monster High doll from my collection. And that's another crazy thing that I realized, because like I said earlier, a lot of things could have easily been kept. It was more or less this incident caused my parent to be like, oh, this is a chance to toss everything out. We don't need nothing. So if I could have kept 5 dolls, I could have kept the rest. I could have kept the rest. I could have easily kept the rest. And this parent has even acknowledged this point a few times over the years, because it was just a tragedy. It affected me heavily, and I didn't realize at the time because I didn't talk about it for years. Yeah. So that happened, unfortunately, and the last doll I saw was Little Dead Riding Wolf Claudine, which I'm pretty sure I said in one of my other videos. She was the last doll I saw on top of my bag, and the last doll that I remember seeing, and it's like, how could I even pick 5? Some of the dolls I had were from 5-packs. Like, I had the Monster High Dance Class 5-pack. I had the Skull Shores 5-pack. I had Boo York dolls. I had all the Dead Riding Wood dolls. If I kept the Fairy Tale dolls, that's already 3 dolls out of the supposed 5 dolls that I could have. Like, you see how difficult that would have been? So, like, in my head, I was just like, oh, don't let me keep any, because I'm just going to want to keep every single doll, but I'll never make a decision and whatever. Should have not have listened to myself. But, oh well. So, with all that being said, there's a lot more details. I can't spill every single detail, but that's the general idea from my perspective on what was going on. Because you ask my family, they'll be like, oh, well, we were stressed too. We were this and that. I'm not dismissing that they were stressed, but their stress subsided within a few days, a few weeks, whatever. You know, also another fact, I didn't go right back to my room. After my things were tossed, I had to sleep in an area within the house that was not a bedroom. You know, this affected me for years and years and years. They eventually got over it. I never was able to. But, yeah, so the dolls and everything I had, so I'm saying the story from memory. That's why it's kind of choppy sounding. I don't have anything written here. I'm just kind of talking. But it was Monster High dolls. I had a few Barbie dolls. I had a couple of Winx Club dolls. I had Novi Stars. Every single stuffed animal gone. My first Build-A-Bear gone. A bear that looked just like this. Legendary. His name is Dakin. That's the company name, but that's what I called the doll when I was younger, because that's what I thought his name was. But the bear looked exactly like this. His name was Dakin. I just said that. My grandma got it for me at a Family Dollar over a decade ago, and it became my favorite bear. And it's unfortunate that I allowed him to be tossed away, because it became a very comfort bear for me. I'm just really lucky I was able to find it, because it was kind of hard to find. It wasn't expensive. It's just, I guess it's like really old, so it was just difficult to find it in good condition the way that I wanted it. But I'm very, very grateful. He's one of my most favorite things that I've found again since restarting my collection a couple years ago. But I didn't save any stuffed animal. My Build-A-Bear is gone. My original Dakin is gone. I have this really amazing horse plushie that's gone. Different plush animals my grandma gave me. They're all gone. They're all gone. They're literally all gone. anything I have that's old from that time period I took from my sister because she did eventually grow out of her things. So I would take them because I was like, well, you don't want it, now I want it. Now it's part of my collection. But the only doll that was saved, the only doll, this headless Barbie doll right here. She is unfortunately, her neck is broken, unfortunately. But this iconic Barbie doll is a doll that I call Brittany. I believe her name is Nikki, but I called her Brittany. And she is like, she's not my oldest doll. I got her like 2013. I started collecting in like 2011, but those things were tossed. So she is technically like my oldest original doll in my collection. And the only way she survived is that, backtracking, that day the tragedy happened, I was doing homework. So I was downstairs doing homework while my parent was upstairs tossing my things in the garage. They didn't want me in the room. So I had to sneak upstairs super quickly because the whole time they were up there, I was thinking, okay, I can't let this happen. I can't let this happen. I have to do something. Little 14-year-old me, the only thing I could think to do was to fit something in my bag. But honestly, I was low-key worried that my parent would have either seen me or check my bag for things. Because, like, it was that serious. Like, literally, this parent didn't play no games, you know? I was scared to be discovered. I was just like, they're gonna know, and then I'm gonna be like, they're gonna be more mad at me. I'm gonna get in more trouble if they see that I'm trying to hide my stuff. Because, like I said, high stress moment. High stress moment means, you know, parent kind of has like tunnel vision on. They're not looking at anything that's not in front of their face. So I was trying to be as, you know, I had to be as quick as possible. And it was going to be difficult to grab a Monster High doll because my Monster High dolls were in a TV cabinet, you know, in rows. And grabbing a Monster High doll means I have to grab the stand, the accessories, the comb, everything. I can't just run in and grab that and then, you know, the other dolls could fall over or whatever. And I didn't want to mess up their hair. Silly thing to think about now. Me now it would never let me happen. Me now, I would have literally chained myself to my room. But back then, that's how I was thinking. And a stuffed animal wouldn't fit in my bag. There was no room in my school backpack for a giant stuffed animal to fit in there and whatever. So the only thing I could think to grab was I was like, oh, if I could have one doll. Because I got this Barbie doll for a significant reason. So that's why it was the only doll that I saved. I ran upstairs, grabbed it, and I put it in a part of my bag that I never opened. So just in case, I could be like, oh, you know, whatever, it's not in there. But that was it. Literally every single thing in my doll room, everything that I've shown in all my videos has been bought. Every single thing in my doll room has been bought in the last 5 years now, you know, which is crazy. Yeah. So, what was I saying? That was kind of the basis of what was going on. I was not I didn't stand up for my desires at the time, and that resulted in all my things being tossed. I remember too, and at the time, this parent had a partner, you know, not biological to me, but they had a pickup truck, and they cared even less about my stuff because, you know, they just got there. They you know, we were all still getting to know each other or whatever. All they knew was, what am I taking to the dump? And yes, you heard me right. My precious items weren't even donated, as far as I know. They weren't donated. They weren't given away to somebody. Nothing. All my toys, dolls, etc. Even a brand new pair of boots. I remember that explicitly. There was a brand new pair of boots in there that I never even got to wear. Never even got to wear my Crocs. My original Crocs. Even my Crocs had to be replaced. Gone. All put on the back of that pickup truck. drove to the dang trash. Even thinking about it now, I get so heated because it's just like, it just really emphasizes some people, they're just not gonna care the same, you know? They're just not. And it's not always their problem per se. It just emphasizes to me how important it is that I do care, you know? Collecting dolls may not be important to somebody else, but it's important to me. You know, it's something that I like to do, something that I have pride in, something that I take a lot of joy into doing. So I like it. I think it's fun. It's important to me. So those simple concepts is right. I will always do it. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm enjoying myself. Whatever. I don't care. Like, I'm having so much fun. So, yeah. Also, something else that really hits me about that day is in the midst of all the chaos and all the, you know, me thinking that I'm going to have a whole 360 in my life, this parent was also saying how they would replace my things. Yep. This parent kind of tried to help soften the blow. I don't want to say it wasn't intended for my stuff to get replaced, but it never got replaced. I didn't get another pair of Crocs for a couple of years. I never got a new pair of Ugg boots. I don't even really wear Uggs, but I never bought another pair. Clothes, I mean, you know, you get clothes throughout your life, but you can't really replace old clothes. Dolls, never. There's still Monster High dolls I don't have. Even with my access to resources and, you know, my money, it's just hard to find those same things from like 20, you know, decades ago. Stuffed animals, really difficult. I don't have most of them. Yeah, I don't have any Winx Club dolls I used to have. Not one. Winx Club is really hard for me to find and really hard for me to buy. Novi Stars, I have the two of them, but they're not the same. One of them, the hair is messy. The other one's missing her shoes. Novi Stars are even more difficult to come by because they're so niche, and then people that do sell them, they're kind of pricey. Yeah, I'm not trying to like bash on this parent. Just at the time, the situation could have definitely been handled a whole lot different. I should have stayed stubborn. You can get over being stubborn, you know? Like, me having a bad mood is something you can get over. But I can't replace what I lost, you know? All those things that likely got tossed in a dumpster, time won't really fix that, you know? It's not gonna make my stuff come back. It's not gonna, like, you know, make me trust all over again, you know? And things did not magically get better. After this incident, like I mentioned, I wasn't even in my room, and then we moved. You know, we moved some months later or whenever later. I actually lost a lot of my spunk for collecting because of that. I just didn't realize it at the time because, you know, you don't always know you're being traumatized in the moment when it's happening until, like, I just realized there were just certain things I no longer did. But I didn't, you know, do the same stuff. I stopped keeping up with my Instagram. I slowly stopped watching YouTubers, like maybe a video here and there, but not the way it used to be. I stopped trying to find dolls. And Monster High was also changing itself. This was like, now it's like probably 2015, 2016. So Monster High was like going through changes themselves. You know, G2 was happening. You know, Monster High was kind of falling off itself. But I didn't buy like any dolls really. I just didn't really. I didn't really go for it anymore. I didn't shop the same. I mean, I still was into little knickknacks and stuff, and I got a couple things over the years, but no dolls. Not like what I have now, not at all. But I did eventually start to express to my parent how that day made me feel, but it always felt kind of silly trying to explain it because it's like I said, a lot of, some people don't care about dolls. At least, people in my family growing up, they didn't really care like that. My sister was actually the first person to show me that she didn't get it, but she knew that it was something that I liked. She actually got me my first doll way back then, which she got me Little Dead Riding Wolf, the Claudine doll, because I expressed to her how that day made me feel and that she was the last doll that I saw being thrown away. So, and it was very special to me because Monster High G1 was not being made at the time. So I think she bought it off Amazon or something, but it was like extra money. But, and we were young, and it was just really nice for her to do that because my sister is polar opposite to me. We're so opposite. And like I said, I knew she didn't like have the same like passions for doll collecting, but it just meant a lot to me that she was still, that was her way of saying that she understands me because, she still listens to me and she still got me a doll. That was very important to me. So that meant a lot to me. And then eventually my parent kind of came around and they got me like 3 Monster High dolls that you could kind of find in Walgreens, which was nice, but I could tell that that spark was just kind of like that spark was in trouble in me. Like, I just knew I had something that was I was suppressing. And it was more just the effects of that day. It wasn't just losing my things. It was losing my trust in my parent. Losing just me wanting to compromise. Because to me, there wasn't compromise that day. I tried to compromise with dividing my things and keeping some. That didn't work. Keeping 5 dolls. That didn't work. Having my items replaced. That never happened. So, a lot of just that, naiveness was damaged that day because it didn't get me anywhere. The one time that I don't fight for something that I want kind of blew up in my face. And, eventually, like I said, my family members got over what happened to them. I can't really get over losing things that are irreplaceable. Like, not like I hold a grudge, just more like it's affected me even with my current collection. I have all these things, but it's like a lot of it comes from trying to replace what I lost, which is not possible. So it's almost like I'm kind of chasing after something I can't really get, yeah, that's kind of the basis of this video is, the more I collect, the more I notice. Not saying I don't like collecting for pure reasons. I still love dolls. Dolls are very creative and cool and very pretty. I would get dolls, whether I have my original collection or not. It's just more, as I buy stuff, I kind of realize, like, mostly from thrift stores. I think the effects of that day have caused me to have a lot of FOMO. I always feel like I'm missing out because, like, there's just, I'm into so many different dolls. And just, one of the cool things about thrifting is finding old dolls. In my mind, I don't have any old dolls. Like, I do. I have dolls that are old, but my old dolls don't exist anymore. It's only this Barbie doll. So when I buy things that are vintage or they're not made anymore, part of my reason of buying it is like, oh wow, it's old. I'm not gonna miss out on something that I'll never see again, type of thing. But then sometimes I buy it and I'm like, I don't really need it or I don't want it. But it's like low key trying to fill a void for like having something special in my collection or having something that's unique because I used to have that. Yeah, I don't know, it affects me sometimes. I have to keep in mind that I don't need every single thing and I don't want every single thing. I'm working on buying things that I truly just like for the item and not other reasons. But it took a lot of time to thoroughly work through the emotions of that day. Even expressing it to my parent, my parent has expressed a lot of remorse for that day, and I appreciate it. It's really tough. Because moments like those and times like those, that's when the parent is supposed to make these tough decisions for the better. But when this was happening to me, I realized that those decisions did not help me. I didn't gain friends. I probably had like 5 friends, 5 or 6 friends throughout my entire school duration, from elementary school all the way up to high school. I could count on my hand how many friends I actually had. And even then, they would get called strange from parent, but that's a whole nother story. What I'm saying is, I was still awkward. I was still strange. I was still a black sheep. I was still shy. I was still the same person, which is expected because having dolls or not having dolls did not change who I am. And that was something that younger me didn't realize at the time. And that was something younger me should have fought for. You always have to fight for yourself at times. And that was one of those times where I shouldn't have backed down. I shouldn't have let the opinions of other people affect me like that. I'm cool, and I should have felt just as cool back then, and I should have known that eventually friends will come around. Eventually you're going to find people that like what you like, that speak your language, that, share these interests. And it won't happen if you're not being yourself. It's not going to happen if you're listening to all the naysayers that, have different views about you. And so I never forget those things, because why would I change who I am to get friends that don't even know the real me or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, it was just something I didn't realize back then. But it affected me greatly because, it just changed my interactions with this parent. And it just made me realize how important it is to be true to me and live an honest life and just, be myself. And, don't let anyone else take away your sunshine. Don't let them take away what makes you feel special, what makes you feel cool, whatever that may be. For me, it's dolls and collecting and being into this. This is a big part of my personality. It's a big part of who I am. It's not, it's not something I take lightly. It's something that I have a whole lot of fun doing. I've invested a lot of hours, a lot of time, and a lot of money into this. It's not just like, nothing. It means something. And, I'm the main one that's going to emphasize that. If other people don't see it as important, that's on them. Whatever, I don't care. But to me, it's very important, and it's something that is very cool. I'm repeating myself, but it's true. Yes, so, all in all, that is the dark truth behind my collection. It hasn't been all great. I went probably, what do you want to say, almost 5 or 6 years without really collecting anything until I was able to find my passion. It didn't really go anywhere. More reawake my passion for dolls again. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. And it still affects me. It was just a big deal, I miss my things. And it's even my Build-A-Bear. The Build-A-Bear I mentioned earlier that was wearing the dress that I showed, I have 3 of them. I went crazy and I bought 3 of them. I found 2 of them in a thrift store, and then I ordered 1 offline. Because, it was just that important to me. It's I keep buying a lot of the same thing I used to have because I'm trying to find a replacement, but there isn't really one. It's just not a replacement. I just have to be at peace with what I do have and what I can find. Yeah. It's not all bad, though. It's not, I don't want it to be a morbid story. It's just more, some background behind, my mindset with collecting dolls and why it's so important to me and, just how it's happened to me. Because I know a lot of people are fortunate that they do have their childhood dolls, or they were just always able to collect from the beginning. For me, I just have my ups and downs, but I'm on very high up now. you know, the parent today acknowledges that this will never change. You know, this will always be a part of who I am. You know, this is it. You know, this is like, look at all this. It's great in here. It's great. So that's mostly my story. Yeah. Ouch. Why do I keep doing this? I was planning to open this Tiana Naveen set on video, but the talking occupied more brain power than I thought, so I wasn't able to. I think that's everything I want to say. Just emphasizing that nowadays I'm mended from that day. I mean, that's just like one thing out of like a million other things that happened. But that day just carried a certain weight to it for years that I didn't even know what it was. But I'm much better now. I mean, look at me. Like, this isn't even like, every time I show the doll room, it's not everything. There's dolls out there. Dolls in my purse, dolls in my car, dolls everywhere. Yeah, so don't let anyone stray you away from your passions. And I'm not going to let anyone stray me away from my passions. Yeah. Dolls are cool. I was cool back then, and I'm still cool now. Coolness never changed. I think that's everything. Yeah.